So how did Snyder Cut do? Well, the claims now not very well. Oh no, despite an awful lot of praise, even from critics. Yeah. So the argument goes like this, and this is coming from a service called Zamba TV. I've never heard of them. Doesn't mean they're not legit. And I'm too stupid to go through the weeds. Because other people broke it down and say you got to factor in Christmas and the times, and this is March and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, the argument goes like this, that Wonder Woman 84 did better than Snyder Cut in its debut. I'm assuming they're talking exclusively numbers on HBO Max, because Wonder Woman was in theaters as well. So if they're putting it all together, that's not accurate. But let's just go with the argument that she did better opening on that. People bring up that there was a lot of more advertising and whatnot for Wonder Woman than Snyder Cut. Yeah, yeah, somewhat. But there was a pretty substantial amount of promotion for Snyder Cut as well. So yeah, but if you say Wonder Woman 84 is more, okay, you can factor that in. But nevertheless, the argument starts with Wonder Woman 84 did better than Snyder Cut did in their respective debut or weekend debuts. Meanwhile, over at Disney Plus is claiming that The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the best debut series ever. That would mean it beat The Mandalorian. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. Oh, wow. Then the numbers show that Snyder Cut beat The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So you really have to question the claims that Falcon and the Winter Soldier was as good as they claim, especially if you're saying it beat The Mandalorian. But if Snyder Cut beat that, it's still good because Disney Plus has way more subscribers than HBO Max does. You got to weave through this. It's like what's real and believable. Now the talks about, as I said earlier, that Wonder Woman came out at Christmas time, and was also in theater. Now I'm assuming that the numbers for the theaters is not factored in here. So at Wonder Woman 84, which by all accounts, and I, including myself, was a bomb. It was a bad film. Snyder Cut is infinitely superior to that one. And it was, it didn't perform well at the time, but if it's, despite being a poorly performing, a film, if it still beats out Snyder Cut, then, well, oh no. Now some of this is Snyder Cut. What drags it is its running time. And there's a lot of people openly admitting that they broke it up in the parts that it's in, so when you get this intermission, you say, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. Stuff like that, instead of watching it all in one sitting. That could factor into it. But I tell you, the hype and excitement for it, and then there's a lot of merchandise coming out of it. There was already t-shirts and whatnot, but there's all these toys and things. And, what will that bring? Meanwhile, the international response to it seems overwhelmingly positive, and apparently HBO Max crashed overseas at one point, and so I don't know. I'm not really buying that this is enough. Well, that's it. It's done. The business of Warner Brothers saying, well, this is it. They were saying that before it came out. Walter Hamada said it was a cul-de-sac. It's not going to go anywhere. There's not going to be any sequels or anything like that. They were against it from the get-go. AT&T stepped in and made this happen because they've got a lot of debt, and they look, well, what's the most, hype and excitement about your products? And, you have to admit it was Snyder Cut, and all that. So they said, all right, well, let's do that. And because they're betting everything on HBO Max. So there were camps within it. It's very similar to the situation with Disney and Lucasfilm and all. So we'll do things in spite of the damage it would do to their brands and company. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, the numbers came in and they just said, okay, that's it. This is it. We're not doing anymore. No haircut, no Snyderverse and all that. But they'd already decided that. So I don't think these Samba TV numbers do much, except there's probably a lot of people filtering it out there says, say on their side. So ultimately, bottom line numbers should rule the day. Should AT&T decide, yeah, that's what we're going to do. But I'm dubious because a lot of things have already been set in place with Bad Robot. You can't underestimate Bad Robot's ability to manipulate these things to their personal advantage, whether it makes money for Warner Brothers or not. I don't think they care. So there's a lot of that going on. But ultimately, was Snyder Cut successful or not, just don't really know at this point. So there's a lot of people shopping this around. There's a lot of people, a lot of people. One of the first I heard this was from Cosmic Book News and Matt McCloin, and he's very upset with what happened to Geeks and Gamers on the part of Snyder. And I perfectly understand that. It was a rotten thing to do, regardless of the excuses that, well, he was under pressure from Warner Brothers and all that. I don't know what else he's depended on Warner Brothers for, or if he wants to keep the door open for the future of other projects and whatnot, and plus their ability to blacklist him should he cross them one more time. Maybe that was it, but still, because other live streams, I think it was Nerd Erotic, and they pointed out that, he was on other streams and never mentioned any of that stuff. Certainly not referring to Atlanta and all that. So this is really a nasty thing to do to a channel that raised all this money for the charity that is close to your heart. So it was just nasty all the way around. That being said, you got to remain objective on these things, and I'm not so sure that he is. He's exaggerating certain things about the plot points for the supposed sequels and whatnot, saying Batman will be depicted as a coward. That's not really there. His brief snippets of what happens, that he doesn't react in time to save Lois from Darkseid killing her. And then the plot goes, they change time to where he does. Ultimately, he dies from that. He doesn't die immediately, which I suspect has to do with those new gauntlets that he has in the Snyder Cut that defends him against Superman's heat vision. So I guess it protects him somewhat against Darkseid's Omega beams, but ultimately he dies from all that. However it goes. But it's not enough there to say that Batman's a coward. The worst thing was the romance between Batman and Lois Lane, that sort of thing, and having a child with her and all that. That's a dumb idea. And so it seemed from the Snyder Cut it was more likely that he would have a romance with Wonder Woman. But anyway, so he's trashing everything. And then Joe Manganiello was talking about the Batman movie that Ben Affleck was going to do. And he says that Batman gets help from Batgirl. So they were going to introduce a Batgirl in that movie. And because Robin's dead already. So there's no Robin. So Batgirl comes in to give him some backup here. And he also says that Batman is afraid of Deathstroke. So he says, he's making Batman to be afraid and all that. It's just, it's a brief saying to judge the whole thing on that. And that it just means that, Deathstroke is going to be a formidable enemy in this film. And of course, the more powerful seeming of your villain, it makes it all the better when the hero ultimately beats him. And his idea that, Batgirl will defeat him and not Batman, it didn't say that. So, yeah. And so he would end, he's done 2 articles on this, and he would end it was like he didn't like what happened to Geeks and Gamers. And it's kind of odd because he seems to be more upset about it than Geeks and Gamers, who are pretty upset about that. So keep in mind, these sorts of things. He's done a complete 180 on Zack Snyder. I think he still likes Henry Cavill, but he's upset about that, and it's understandable. That was a rotten thing that Snyder did. But I don't think his arguments about what the different plot points were going to be is a bit stretched at this point, since there's no movie there to talk about. So anyway, as far as these numbers, it's this odd thing. So it Falcon and Winter Soldier is the best ever. Snyder Cut beats it, but Snyder Cut fails because Wonder Woman 84 was better. I don't know. So Wonder Woman 84 must be the best ever because it beat both Snyder Cut and the Disney plot. Yeah. So anyway, there it is. That's the argument, huh? Yeah. How about that? Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr. Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.